Alright, welcome back everybody to Hector's hard mode in Fire Emblem 7. We are making our way up towards Linus. He's gonna get mushed by our guys. Primarily we're gonna use General Lowen. Lowen, is that right? That doesn't sound right. Anyways, we're gonna send our general up. He's going to lure Linus towards us, and then we'll use our other characters to beat him up with our big strong sword hands. Because what he's carrying right now is a combination of a throwing axe and a regular sword of some sort, like a steel thick sword, like the ones we could buy in the secret shop in the castle, like many episodes ago. We're also just trying to see how many guys I can get level up here. Obviously, we just did Zane in the last episode. The lords don't have their special ruby gemstone grindstone to change them into stronger versions of themselves. So for at least right now, I'm going to be leaving certain characters, i.e. Lynn and Ellawood, once they hit 20, which Lynn's really close to doing now, on the bench, except when they are required in a level. Obviously, I can't bench a character that is... The game says, nope, you gotta bring them. You gotta bring Hawkeye into the cavern with you and waste a spot that you could probably use on somebody better. Not that Hawkeye wasn't the MVP of the last mission, I guess. Not the last episode, but the last mission. He definitely was carrying me through a large chunk of that with his high evasion and high attack. And there's Heath. I was hoping you get to 20, so we're gonna class you up here in a sec. Unfortunately, Heath, you're just gonna have to eat all that experience for free. And then, yeah. Be able to class up. Perfect. Use the whip. We'll heal you up with perk, and yeah, we'll be ready to go. I love Wyvern riders. If I could be, well, I understand the nature of Wyvern riders tend to be, they live in a mountainous area that is usually dominated by some combination of either snow or evil dark energy empire, but yeah, if I could be any unit in Fire Emblem, I'd want to be a Wyvern rider. Now, obviously, that implies that, like, oh, the dragons that your Wyverns you're riding on are super easy to train, and they won't eat you or do anything that Wyverns would I would imagine normally do. We're again just kind of playing make believe here at this point. But what I'm trying to get at is, you know, ideals. I mean, I talked about ideal stats in previous one of the previous episodes. My number one, you know, top tier ability is defense. I'd rather have defense than any other stat in the whole game. I understand resistance is important, but again, with the nature of what Heath is, which is a flying unit that can go very long distances with his flight. Now that he's classed up, he can go up to 8 spaces. It's like, okay, yeah, you can definitely outrange any mage that happens to wander into your zone. That's the plan. Or I keep saying that, I don't know why. I think it's because I'm still sleepy. Like I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning. And my body's like, well, it's time to get up, right, Chris? I'm like, looking at the clock going, nah, we need like minimum 2 more hours of sleep. And the game was, my body was like, nah man, we're just gonna give you a bunch of fake dreams to make you think that you're awake, but you're really not. And then we're gonna you're gonna go to church and shit, and you're gonna sit and sing the hymns and pray and bullshit like that. And it's like, okay, fair enough. You know, you want to do it, that's fine. But like, it's just repetitive, stupid fucking dream. You know, where I think I'd wake up and I'm actually still in a dream. And then my dad's like, we gotta go to church now. I go, okay, so I get in the car and we're late for church every time. Which is unlike my dad. He would not wait for me. He would just go. He doesn't like being late for anything. Let me do a couple things here. Yep, that's good. Get you over there in case I need someone to attack a enemy that drops in behind my lines. Tries to kill my Merlinus. Also, I don't need Dart clogging up the way. So you ever lose track of time? Here's a great example, okay? The one that's most common for me is I'm driving in my car. Looking at the road, looking at the trees, looking at everything. And then, I know I kept driving. When I think back to it, it feels like my mind went blank. Like, did I remember to do this? Do I have that? Did I leave the photo that Mom has on this, you know, board? I don't know where I was going with that one. That was really weird. I'm sorry. Like I said, still a little tired. I'm just sort of rambling now. Getting one of those like feelings like that episode where Bart is part of a foreign exchange program. He goes over to France and they basically put him to work like a child slave on making cheaper, different wine stuff, something that they could cheaply make and would be addictive in some capacities, whether that's very addictive or just, you know, minor, giving you something different in your palate. And obviously putting antifreeze in anything is not a great idea unless you want to die. But nevertheless, you know, there's a veteran in there and people have the right to do whatever they want, even if that's a stupid thing. And then Bart finally learns how to speak French, I guess, in sort of a like a Deus Ex Machina kind of way. I know he's supposed to be learning the language as he's going along, but he basically establishes that he can't seem to remember anything, let alone the whole language. And then he's able to talk somewhat perfect French, I guess. I'm talking from the perspective of an American who probably does not have any of the right accents, and you know, probably like when you're watching someone from Japan talk, you know, with the letter R in it. Instead of R, they pronounce the word L. So instead of, like, the one that always gets me is in Full Metal Alchemist, there's a character named Al, which is short for Alphonse. Because the R sounds very unique to the English language. It's not wholly unique to the English language. I think it's also in Mandarin or Chinese or something like that. But this I-U-A sound, or however it is, like, they have trouble with, and generally they'll replace it with an L. So instead of getting Al or Alphonse, you get Ara or Arafonso, Eric, Elric, Alfonso. Which I can't really blame. You know, I'm not blaming any particular language. You know, language develops over hundreds, thousands of years, and the fact that we speak what we call High English. Is it High English? Well, we speak contemporary English is I guess the best way I could say it. I can't remember if High English makes it considered to be Old English or what. Yeah, I mean, you don't expect them to change overnight, or hell, if you've never heard the sound before, which was one of the things that I remember them stressing very heavily when I was in 2nd grade, which is the concept of a bossy R sound, which I guess my younger brother never picked up because we were watching old home videos, and he had sort of a weird, I never noticed it when growing up, but he had this weird way of saying R word. He would go, pull me pocket, you know, like a baby, you know. But like I said, he had trouble with his R's, and he sort of had to kind of self-teach himself against doing that because, you know, he was going towards middle school. He was like 4th or 5th grade at that point, and he still hadn't come out of the you know, the R's. I can do R's. So I don't know if we got him a speech pathologist or what. I know, you know, like 8 years later, 8 years after my brother's born, my sister's born. She's the next in line. And there's definitely, obviously, a gap there. Almost a full go to kindergarten through the end of high school gap in education there. So, of course, things are going to change. You know, we're going to get better at certain things. I won't say we're going to get worse at others. I could make the joke that I think math's gotten a little too stupid for my liking. It's, you know, you're trying to create a shortcut so they do math faster, but you don't ask the question, why is the math necessary? At least until you get to like a middle school level and you start dealing with algebra and geometry, that sort of stuff, and then you go, oh, that's why you need math. Oh, that's why that's important. Or, oh, hey, I can use that in my everyday life when I'm, you know, working any job, you know. I'm thinking manual labor off the top of my head because we're talking about measurements, but it could be any job, you know. And yeah. So we're getting close now to finishing this up. I know it doesn't really look like it because I've got a couple guys left on the board, including that pirate that you can see, Lloyd Linus's backups, and then these Wyvern Lords down here. But the idea is that once we have the the pirate below Heath cleaned up, I'm just going to push Heath to the right in order so that he can, you know, soak up the rest of the flying unit's experience. So it ultimately doesn't matter because he's surpassed the level that he should be at. So the game's gonna start giving me frowny faces on my experience and work ethic experience. So but yeah, I'm gonna have to trade. There is a secret area, as I showed in Hector's normal mode. It's in the same spot. I just have to give Heath the silver ticket and make sure he doesn't have a full inventory of items. Not that there's really, if I remember correctly, there's nothing on this island, or I think even in the next secret mission chapter, where you can unlock a hidden store. I don't think there's good weapons in there either. I think there's just sort of the run-of-the-mill stuff that you would expect, like torch. You know, brighten up a room without having to use a thief. Or I'm trying to think of some other ones I can't think of right now off the top of my head. Yeah, Dart, you're just gonna stay down there. I'd originally planned to use you, but I realized between using Dorcas and using Dart, I'm gonna be more than enough axe users. In addition to my lord, obviously. She'll be okay. She'll be okay. I mean, Heath. I think Heath will be okay. There's a question. I was talking with my sister the other day, and she was talking about how her and her fiance had ordered some Uber, or whatever you want to call it, DoorDash, insert delivery service here. She had ordered food from a place, and they didn't want to drive to go pick it up, so they had, you know, DoorDash, Uber Eats, whoever it was, come pick it up and bring it to them. And then, you know, the whole, you're watching it go, you watch it go, then it says delivered, you look outside, there's no food, and it's like, what happened to our food? They're like, I dropped it off. Why? And you're like, I don't have any food here on my porch when you rang my doorbell. Who took my food? We don't know if it's a porch pirate. Probably not, but could be. Or more than likely, there, you know, there's a thought going around, or maybe it's even acknowledged at this point that you know, the DoorDash driver steals your stuff, so he gets your money because you're paying him to do the delivery. Then he gets paid a second time when he steals your food and eats it. Well, you don't really get paid, but you know, in cash. But I mean, it's a free meal. That's what I'm trying to say. It's usually too much as well in those bags, so you usually have to have leftovers. So, not like one person can eat a whole fucking spaghetti dinner all by themselves. It's designed to feed 3. Here's a story for you guys. When I was a kid, I don't know why this popped in my head just now, but when I was a kid, me and my younger brother Steven, used to go out and just sort of just walk around. In our old neighborhood, there used to be a thing that you could call a you know, a community center. Okay, there's essentially a community center. So in the community center, within, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a stone throw away from each other, but you're talking no more than a 2-minute walk. You have the pool. Next to the pool is a tennis court. Next to the tennis court is a basketball court. And then if you go down into the woods, you know, as if you're going to the tennis court, but you choose to head, I guess, I don't know what the direction would be, but it would be diagonal down from that area. Down the hill, there's a baseball field at the bottom, okay? Now, these are things that were probably put in when the community was new in like the 70s, and didn't really see much, if any, update to these things. Now, obviously the pool has been updated. The basketball court has been repaved, fixed, what have you. You know, probably multiple times at this point, but I remember in 95 they'd shaved down all the asphalt and replaced it with new asphalt. You know, typically when you order something, well, I have a coworker, when he does renovations like that, it's like, good God, hold on to your fucking pocketbook. Here comes $1 million coming out of the company. They're always big projects that we've been putting off for years. So they have it, but basically at the end of the year, or the beginning of the next year, they basically say, we're allocating $1 million for repairs this year, and the idea is obviously not to spend $1 million, because the more money you get to keep in the company, the more you get to count as profit. But yeah, the ballpark was never really maintained after it was initially put in. And so me and my brother would sometimes go down there. Oh, and by the way, there was also a duck pond within a very short distance of either one of those two. So the duck pond and the baseball fields were in a lower valley area, along with the creek, obviously, where all the runoff water from the development was basically pooling, from the two sides, the left and right side of development. It's pooling through, sewer systems, or whatever you call that, wastewater systems, and they all basically dump into this pond or into one of the streams that eventually leads to the pond, whether that is just kind of out of a thing. It just slowly trickles its way down the hill until it meets up with the rest of the tributary, etc. But it was, I don't know why I suddenly thought about that. It just like, I remember in the early 90s, the field was older. It wasn't old, it was older, but it still had, it didn't have any bases on it, because it was again sort of a practice field. It was tucked away a little bit as well, which, not that it was not like it was a hidden treasure or anything like, oh, it's overgrown with weeds and shit. It was always maintained, and they always would go back from where the pond was back towards the baseball field, and it was always cut. It was just that after a while, the dirt in the infield started to turn into grass, and then eventually, I guess more recently, the backstop is rusted out, which I guess makes sense because it's probably been about 50 years since they put it in. There are other interesting things I'd like to talk about from my original childhood home. Around 95-ish, this is all sort of similar topic. Around 95, we had a group of vandals, whatever you want to call them. I don't know if they lived in my development or not, or if they were from a nearby development. But basically, we had a spray painting incident where they were spray painting 95, which I guess was their graduation year, in the year 95, 94, 95. All over everything. They spray painted the playgrounds. They just put in a relatively new, I don't know how to explain it, plastic slides, I guess. It was a jungle gym sort of thing. It wasn't all that. It's not like, super impressive, but it was something, that you could go and play if you were a little kid, and, there were 3 different slides and blah, blah, blah. Well, anyways, they came through and they spray painted the side of the tube slide, okay? And at one point, me and my brother and our friend who lived within a literal stone's throw of this playground decided we were going to get rocks and basically scrape off the paint. Well, whatever paint we scraped off was the amount of paint that ever came off of that thing. Because you would expect the community to send someone in to get it like a sander or something, like some light sandpaper, and sandpaper off the, you know, the graffiti. That never happened. And because the plastic sort of is different than, say, cement or other stuff, you know, you couldn't really paint over it. You couldn't really, the sun never really bleached it away, you know. So the only thing we were able to do, like I said, was we took stones and scratched it off because it was our playground. I mean, probably not the smartest thing to do, but you know, when you're 10 years old or however old I was at that point, you didn't think about that. You were just thinking about, well, how do I get rid of this paint? And I mean, obviously, I knew that no amount of stones was going to get it off of. There was a stone structure that they had in the playground that was left over from probably when the community was developed. We knew we weren't ever going to get that paint off that, but Mother Nature took care of that because between the sun and the rain, it eventually wore it down, and it disappeared completely. But the reason I'm telling this story is they had, at around that time, they had just repaved the both the tennis courts and basketball court. It was freshly laid, freshly sealed courts. And right after they had finished up the last of the paint, they hadn't even painted lines yet at that point. Right after they had finished the work and the guys had left for the day, they came in, these teenagers came in, and they turned the basketball court into a giant bullseye with 96 spray painted at center court, your center tip-off circle thing. Oh boy, that was... We went to a community meeting for that. Boy, they just laid into them like, we're going to basically put a bounty out for these kids. Any information, I think it was like a $2,000 bounty on these kids. Plus, at that point, they had been complaining to the township long enough that the township was on patrol, like, you know, we were a bad neighborhood or something. We had police up and down the streets all the time, particularly after curfew, which was about 9, 10 o'clock, depending on what time of the year it was. Summer would have been 10 o'clock. So, you know, starting about 9 o'clock, I'd say they would be there prowling the streets to see if anyone was out after curfew. Well, that was close. I'm gonna finish this off with Lynn. Anyways, they eventually caught the kids, and I don't know what they did. Ultimately, they painted over everything. But that's my story for today. Next time, we'll be moving on to the next episode, the one where we're gonna get Farina. Till then, hope you have a good one.